All right, well, welcome everybody to this second in our six-part farm employment workshop series. Glad you could make it. Welcome to those of you watching the recording as well. My name is Ben Zoba, and I am the beginning farmer educator at New Entry Sustainable Farming Project, and happy to be with you here. And I've got a good workshop lined up for you, some great guest speakers. I'm very appreciative of these three folks making time for us tonight, and I hope you enjoy it. So the plan for the day is I'm gonna give you just a little intro about New Entry and this series, and then at about 6:05, Bailey Albert from the Farm Service Agency is gonna take over and give a presentation about FSA offerings and the NAP insurance program. And then after Bailey speaks, we'll have Jeff Cole from the Carrot Project. And then around 7, we'll hand it over to Ryan Voiland from Red Fire Farm. A lot of great content here, and questions are welcome. My associate Sydney is going to be monitoring the chat. If I miss any questions, or if any of our speakers do that pop up in the chat, Sydney will make sure we're aware of those. And yeah, please do share and offer your insights as well, or if there are resources you want to post in the chat, we welcome your participation in all of that. At New Entry, our mission is basically to train and support the next generation of farmers, and we have a few different kind of program areas that work toward that end. I'm on the farmer training team here, so my role is to offer a lot of our courses and coordinate some of our workshops. We have a food hub that is a food aggregator, buy from our incubator farmers. Oh yeah, I should have mentioned the farmer training team. We have an incubator farm on site in Beverly, Massachusetts as well. So it's a great resource if folks are trying to start their farm business and need a place to get going. And then our food hub buys from our current farmers, alumni farmers, other local farmers in the area. And then we have a national outreach program that coordinates with other apprenticeship and incubator programs across the country, trying to share best practices and see if we can help each other out in the work of trying to get the next generation of farmers lined up for success. If your name is any different than the name you registered with, or if you want to include your last name, because that would help me, we're going to be sending a whole bunch of follow-up resources, the recording to this and slides and things like that. So if you could change your name to have your last name included, or if you don't want to do that, you could send me a private chat message with your first and last name, and that would make sure I have my registration document in line with the names I'm seeing on the attendance sheet. And then, yeah, questions are totally welcome. We'll be monitoring the chat. You've already heard from the robot voice that the meeting's being recorded, so we'll make that recording available to folks as well in case you want to refer back to anything. There will be a brief survey that'll pop up as you log off. It's very helpful for us. This work is funded from a grant. I have that info in the next slide, but it's just good for us to see, is this helping folks who are attending? Is this kind of hitting the things we want you to have as takeaways? And then it also helps, our previous presenter mentioned, if you write down something like the last two questions, or what are the takeaways that you might implement from this workshop? If you actually write something down, your chances of taking action on it are higher. So it can be a good opportunity to let some things that you learn sink in a bit. Upcoming events. On the New Entry side, we've got the Farm Business Planning course. That's starting in January 13th. Actually, two of our presenters here are frequent guests in that and guest presenters, so it's wonderful to have that. So yeah, it's a 8-week course, walk through the process of writing a farm business plan. And then I did see, Ryan, on your website that you've got CSA shares, looks like still available, maybe even the end of the fall shares and then the deep winter shares. So check out Red Fire Farms website. I'm guessing, Ryan, you'll kind of share that website, or we can post it in the chat or something, but that sounds great. This is part 2 of a 6-part series, so we've got a lot of good stuff to come. We'll be pinging you with links for that. And actually, Sydney, at some point, if you want to copy and paste into the chat the homepage for the next workshop, that would be great. But yeah, hope to see you in future workshops as well. And thanks to our funder, Northeast Extension Risk Management Education, part of the USDA. We're grateful that this work is funded and that we can offer these types of things, and we hope you find it helpful. So that's all I've got. You don't need to hear any more from me, but thanks for attending, and thanks especially to our 3 guest presenters. First up, we've got Bailey Albert from the Farm Service Agency. She's the Massachusetts State Outreach Coordinator and acting Franklin County Executive Director. So got a full plate, but thanks for making the time to join us after hours and everything. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be included among all of the presenters that you have here today, and from briefly seeing on that list. Farm Service Agency, we really appreciate being a presenter in a piece of your training or your workshop, your learning. So as Ben said, my name is Bailey Albert. I'm with the USDA Farm Service Agency. USDA is one big umbrella where we have 29 different agencies under there, and Farm Service Agency is one of them. Within the USDA, we are very fond of our acronyms and letter alphabet soup. So I will try to say out the full wording of everything, but if you have any questions, catch me talking in any bureaucratic jargon, please do slow me down and ask questions. But I will refer to Farm Service Agency as FSA, and that's how you'll see us in a lot of places. So USDA Farm Service Agency, FSA overall, is the agency that's mainly responsible for administering any programs and policies that come from Congress. Every year, historically, this last farm bill has been a little bit different, but Congress passes a farm bill that includes a lot of programming for financial support for farmers, and that's where we do a lot of our operating from. But there are also emergency programs that come along that aren't already spelled out. And when Congress passes an emergency program, such as in response to weather events or a global pandemic or something along those lines, that is usually administered by the Farm Service Agency. Another role that we have at FSA is that we do facilitate the eligibility determination process for participating with us in our sister agency, the Natural Resources Conservation Service. That's NRCS. What that means is we make you do all the paperwork that we're real known for in terms of making sure that the taxpayer dollars are going towards the farmers that really qualify for our programming. So when we say we do our eligibility paperwork, it's to make sure that you and your operation are the intended recipients of the federal funding. So I like to explain Farm Service Agency as 2 halves of a whole. We have our farm program side and our farm loan side. We all work together, but we do have 2 different missions and different sets of toolboxes to support you. So farm programs, that's those permanently established programs that come in the Farm Bill every year. And then we have the ad hoc or emergency programs that come along. Those are done through our farm program side. And then we have a farm loans team. And we like to be known as the lender of first opportunity here at FSA. And we are able to provide low interest rate loans for those who qualify. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but lender of first opportunity, meaning if you're not able to get a loan somewhere else, Farm Service Agency is usually able to help. We know that there are so many wonderful resources out there right now that offer grants and other sorts of cost share funding, and incurring debt is sometimes not everybody's first choice, but we do have some very supportive and helpful options through our farm lending program. So Farm Service Agency, if you're not overly familiar with us, operates on a county level basis. And I just have an example of the Massachusetts counties right here. So there is usually an office in each county, or if there's multiple counties that are grouped into one jurisdiction, you are serviced through a joint county office. The county office is the team of folks that you'd work with to file your applications, to call up if you see that there's a program going on and you want more information. These are your, boots on the ground folks that are there to service you. The idea of the county office is that we're out here in not quite in the trenches with you because you're the ones doing the real hard work, but we're out here supporting you, and you can walk in anytime, and we're able to access this way. So I have a link here that will be shared, but for you to find your service center, you put in your county and it'll let you know where your USDA service center is located. All right, I briefly touched on the idea of eligibility within Farm Service Agency. I know this is not the meat of the presentation, but I want to explain that Farm Service Agency works on the concept of establishing a farm number. So your records are identified by your farm number, mostly, instead of by your name. So for example, if you were on a farm and you installed a big irrigation project and yada, yada, the records of the work that went on would be tied to the farm number, because maybe you sell the farm down the road and somebody wants to go back and look at that. Or, you're reporting what crops you've grown on your land, and that's tied to the land because you might be a little bit more mobile than your land is. So that's why we say you're going to get a farm number. You don't have to remember your farm number. It's not, an ID. We can look it up. But when we say get a farm number, that means we draw a picture of your farm in our GIS technology system in the computer, and outline it, and then you're assigned a farm and tract number. They come together. And when you do that, it's all said and done. We will get into the paperwork portion of what is required for financial participation with Farm Service Agency and NRCS. If you're getting any sort of financial assistance from us, we'll need this paperwork. It asks questions about how your operation is structured. If you have an entity, who are the members of the entity? One of the forms asks if you make more or less than $900,000 a year. That's one of my favorite, because I know a lot of folks wouldn't be talking to me if they made more than $900,000 a year. But again, the reasoning behind these paperwork is Congress and the lawmakers want to make sure that the financial assistance is going out to the folks who need it. So we check on your annual gross income. That's one. And then we talk about, we're a non-regulatory agency. We can't get you in trouble for doing anything in terms of environmental compliance, but we do ask that you understand that we can't pay you if you are violating any environmental considerations, such as plowing up a wetland to plant your corn, or if you know that you have highly erodible soil, we want to just make sure there's a conservation plan in there to preserve the soil. So those are the pillars behind the eligibility paperwork. I like to just put that out and say there is a reason, there's a method behind the madness, but there's that. And then the last paperwork that we ask for every year is an acreage report. So you report to Farm Service Agency what you're growing and where you're growing it. So if you have a farm with 3 fields, you say field 1, I planted Howden pumpkins. Field 2, I planted my strawberries. And field 3, I had for grazing my sheep. And we keep it as pasture. This is a really big requirement for a lot of programs that come along. And the reason that I'm pressing upon this at this point is because we've seen a lot of retroactive programs coming from USDA right now. And so they say in 2023, there was severe flooding in the Northeast, and we're doing a program where we can pay out supporting on that. but we have to have some way of proving that you were growing a crop in 2023. And your acreage report is something that we can hang our hat on as a certification of you came in 2023 and told us that you had your tomatoes out there. And now looking back, we can see that and you're eligible for this program payment to go forward. So it's just also a way to keep yourself in the loop of things that are coming down the road. Okay, I'm going to skip that because it's not super important. We talked about permanent and emergency programs. Yes, I just want to get to the meat of the presentation, sorry. Farm Service Agency farm loans, like I said, lender of first opportunity, were designed to serve producers who maybe aren't able to get a loan through the commercial bank down the street due to different reasons. If your credit isn't where they want it to be or things like that, we know that there's a lot of different considerations for agricultural producers. I want to mention that we can do loans for real estate. We call them our farm ownership loans. You can purchase a farm, you can purchase a building on the farm, things like that, as well as operating loans, which cover everything from feed, seed, labor costs, anything that you realistically need to operate your business. One thing that's really great to mention to kind of new and beginning folks that are getting their feet wet in the farming world is that we offer microloans. And the concept of a farm service agency microloan is that that's capped at $50,000, but there are less eligibility criteria, less requirements needed to secure that loan because we want to be able to make capital investments in new and beginning farmers and people getting out there. So microloans are a great way of doing that. There's so much information on farm service agency loans online right now. They've done a really great push to come into the 21st century on farm service agency loans. So there are tools where you can check your eligibility for getting a loan. There's tools where you can work on half of the application online, things like that. That's at, and I'll share this when Ben shares the slides with you. That's at farmers.gov/loans. And it has more information than you've probably ever wanted, but it's a tool there that I definitely suggest looking into. Okay, this is why we are here, why I'm here today to talk with you. So the non-insured crop disaster assistance program, we call it NAP at Farm Service Agency. This is the idea that there is federal crop insurance through commercial lenders on more major commodity crops that we think of, like corn and soybeans and tobacco. But for the specialty crops that aren't covered under federal crop insurance, commercial crop insurance, like your run-of-the-mill fruit and vegetables on your farm, we can cover things like maple sap and honey and certain other aspects. Things that aren't covered by federal crop insurance probably are covered under the NAP program. It operates similar to an insurance program in a lot of ways. There is a service fee to obtain coverage. So you secure coverage ahead of time, like an insurance program, and it's $325 per crop per year. You pay an annual fee up to $825. So if you had 10 crops, your fee is capped at $825, which is a good thing. However, the best part about NAP is that the service fee is waived for beginning farmers. We consider that someone to have been in farming from 0 to 10 years. The fee is waived for limited resource farmers, which is a certain formula that we can talk about in your county office. What we call historically underserved, socially disadvantaged farmers, which for your racial or gender purposes, and veteran farmers can have the service fee waived. So it's free insurance coverage if you fall in any of those pools, which is to say, it's really a good idea to get NAP if you don't have to pay for it, because worst case scenario, you don't get anything from it. Best case scenario, you didn't pay anything and you have a little bit of a security blanket when you need it. So without getting too far into the weeds, there are various coverage levels like there are for a normal insurance program. You have your basic coverage level, and then you can buy up coverage, which gives you a higher protection value. The basic coverage level is called 50-50. I'm not going to belabor this point too much, but the idea in plain English is that 50% of a producer's crop is covered by NAP. So in other words, you have to lose over 50% for NAP to kick in. So say you lost 3/4 of your crop, you lost 75% of your crop. NAP expects that you absorb the first 50%, and then anything over that there will be payments on. So you could get paid on the other 25% of your loss. And then the 50-55 number is that you're paid at 55% of the average market price. So if you see in the buy-up coverage options, you can go to 50-100, where you have 50% coverage level at 100% of the price, or you can buy up to 55, 60, or 65%, meaning NAP will cover up to 65% of your loss. You have to have a 35% loss before it starts kicking it. That's a little bit in the weeds, but the reason that I like to say it out there is to explain to folks what the ratio means and tell you that there are different options for coverage to make it worth your while. The NAP program, causes of loss that are eligible to be paid out by NAP, are only natural disaster or weather-related loss events. You can see I copied and pasted the regulation here, but drought, hail, excessive moisture, if we have a really rainy year and things just aren't growing, freeze, drought, hurricanes, yada, yada, volcanoes. The reason that I mention this is that notable causes of loss are market disruptions. You just didn't have anywhere to sell your beautiful blueberries this year is not a reason that NAP could pay you. There has to be a natural disaster or weather event. I do like to note that the failure to employ good management practices for the crop is also a reason that this could be ineligible. If you go out to a bare patch of dirt and throw some pumpkin seeds in the air and then come and tell me that your pumpkins didn't grow and you want a NAP payment, I would ask you, well, what were your management decisions? And we would realize that that's not eligible for NAP because you didn't really plant the crop and take care of it and things like that. So that's a little bit of a silly example, but there is a basic expectation of employing regular routine management practices on your crop. Okay, so we won't get nitty gritty, but I want to explain that NAP is calculated on a few different factors. So it's calculated on the acreage amount of the crop that you planted, your approved yield, which we'll get back to in 1 second, how much production for that crop that you did have, if any, if you were able to harvest some of the crop, how much, your coverage level that we just talked about, and the average market price of the crop. Because this is similar to an insurance program, we have what's called a loss adjuster, kind of a contracted inspector with the Farm Service Agency that's sent out to evaluate the crop loss after the event. So you call up the office and tell us you've had a loss, and we'll get in touch with the loss adjuster to go out and do the appraisals. Oh, I was getting ahead of myself. So the process of NAP is that the crop year begins when you sign up. For most annually tilled crops, the NAP deadline is March 15th. So your crop year runs from March 15th until the normal harvest date for the crop. We do have that in a chart, but for example, butternut squash right now in Massachusetts, the normal harvest date is October 20th. So you would be covered from March 15th to October 20th. And in that span of time, if there was a weather event that caused a loss, that's what your coverage would pay for. So you have to obtain the coverage in the same calendar year. So for next year, for 2026, if you were looking for coverage, you would secure that by March 15th of 26. And acreage reports are due the same year for that crop by July 15th. You don't have to remember these dates right now, but they are important to say that you have to report your acreage to be eligible for a NAP payment. We need to know how many acres of X, Y, and Z that you had. Losses it's important that you contact your county office, your FSA representatives, as soon as you know that there's been a loss to your crop. We do have a 72-hour notification rule. And the idea is that as soon as the loss is apparent, you call up the county office. That way we make sure that we start the process for you. We get a loss adjuster out there in time to see what's going on, and the like. So the county office will prepare all the paperwork and do that. And then the county office, your folks will reach out to the loss adjuster to arrange the visit to your farm. The loss adjuster will reach out to you before showing up on your land, ask if you want to be there, walk through it with you, explain what they're doing, that kind of thing. And then once the loss adjuster writes up the report, send it back to the county office, and we'll do an application for payment. Again, a little bit in the weeds. It's slowed down when I shared the slides with Ben for you to look at, but I wanted to explain kind of start to finish of you secure the coverage. If you report a loss, we send somebody out, we do paperwork along the way. It's kind of like car insurance. You get your coverage, you have an accident, somebody looks at it, that kind of idea. One big piece of NAP is that you may be required to provide additional records along the way to verify your information. So record keeping is really, really important. These records can include things like your sales receipts. For example, we talked about the production, that you were able to have some production off of your field. Do you have receipts of selling at wholesale? Do you have any invoices when you contracted with a restaurant? Do you just have point of sale records from your farm stand, that kind of thing? Field notes that show what you were doing, show your management practices, and copies of your lease, etc. This I want to mention, but it's a more in-depth conversation. But NAP is designed to reward you for being a good grower. So your approved yield goes into your payment calculation. If you were expected to get 100 bushels of butternut squash, but you only got 35, it's taken into consideration your approved yield. Over time, you report to us on good years as well as lost years what your production was. And if you're a really good grower, that number is bolstered with your records. And in that sense, the better grower you are, the larger your gap will be if you do have a lost year, and thus the larger your payment. That's the simplified version of it, but it's a really big incentive for you providing your personal records. We want to be able to reward you for what you're doing out there. So you are required to provide those production records every year. And to beat the drum even further, record keeping is so important for everything. It's imperative for a lot of our programs. And without satisfactory records, it is possible that a NAP payment could be reduced or even denied. And we don't want that to happen. I also like to put on my other hat and say there's other benefits of good record keeping for folks in general. This helps you remember what happened, what your thought processes were. At the beginning of the season, you're going to say, I am going to remember that I planted those over there, and that's why I did it. Not a chance. I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, let alone, what you were doing last year. It can be useful to help you assess your problem areas. If you are realizing that this crop is just not germinating well for me. Was that a seed issue? Maybe you want to buy seed from somewhere else. Was your equipment faulty? Can help you facilitate planning for the future, and it's useful for other agency programs and grant applications. We've noticed that a lot of our, for example, our State Department of Agriculture in Massachusetts is really wonderful and supportive, and their programs come along and they're looking for previous year records to support the grant applications. So it's a really good idea, not just because Bailey said you need to have records for NAP. There's a lot of reasons. My last point, and I will wrap up here, is that the NAP program is designed as a safety net. It's not designed as a profit replacer. As we talked about, NAP will cover only 50% of your loss, and you are expected to absorb the beginning. So it's not going to replace everything. It's not a windfall, but it is a safety net. If everything goes wrong and this is what's there, it can help you hold on and pay your employees and buy seed to try again next year. Worst case scenario. Mitigation and adaptation will serve you better in the long run. This is not to say, in so few words, of, you can't bank on a NAP payment or something like that, because that's not helping your operation. If you realize that you're planting your tomatoes in a field that floods every year, no matter what you do, you're going to do better by moving that field rather than claiming a NAP loss every year. But the point is that NAP is here to support you until you can figure out the best methods for your farm. And lastly, just having a disaster plan in place is one of the best ways to secure your payroll. I missed what Ben's great title of this workshop was, but I think it was helping to support your payroll. Think ahead of time what the steps you need to take if you know that a big storm is coming your way. Harvest anything you can. You're gonna do better off by having it in hand than laying in the field. If you got greenhouses, tie them down, that kind of thing, these thoughts in place. And then my little plug is to have your FSA county office number saved in your phone. Call them up, tell them that you're expecting a loss, make sure you have your paperwork in place, and let us help you through it. As I said earlier, you're the ones out there doing the hard work. We are here to make sure that your operation in your business remains a viable option for your livelihood. So that's what I've got. I'm coming up towards the end, Ben, pushing my time, but I'm happy to take any questions or comments now, or share my contact information for later. But I'll turn it over to you. I didn't check the chat while we were going. Is there?
Thank you, Bailey. Yeah, there's one question in the chat. Does NAP use organic retail prices to calculate value of crop loss? Or if not, how are each crop values determined?
That is a fantastic question, actually. And the answer is we are working on that. Right now in Massachusetts, we have one standard payment factor for the crops. So folks that are growing organic or folks that are selling at the farmer's market, farm stand instead of to wholesale are getting a lower price than they would be getting at, point of sale. However, we now have the flexibility and the abilities to create two different payment scales. If you have an organic price, your price point is obviously higher, and the NAP payment will reflect that going forward. We anticipate that to be in effect for fiscal year 26. But that's a great point, and one of the things to remember again about NAP not being the be all end all. So the market price that we work with, we have to have supported by things like the ag census and data like that, which is outdated and older. So you may be finding that the payment amount is less than you were expecting, but we're working on making it more reflective of what's actually going on. So thank you for that question, and you have exactly the right mindset. We are doing our best. And then I see, how can I find out if our farm is registered? Great question. I would recommend that you find your county service center, use the locator link that I've sent, or go to farmers.gov and you put in your county office, and a name and email of your county director will show up. Shoot them an email with your name and your address of your farm location. That's the easiest way for us to look it up. And we can tell you if you indeed do have a farm and track number. And if you don't, we're happy to get you one. And if you do, that's a great point of getting in touch, saying, I didn't realize I was registered. Okay, great. Now what? So I highly recommend.
Great questions. Any final questions for Bailey before we let her go? Cool. Thank you for sharing your email there. If folks have other questions that they think of later, they can reach out. And yeah,
absolutely.
Thanks for cramming a lot of info into a small space.
I apologize for it's drinking from a water hose, and I know some places were glossed over, so please do reach out. I also didn't want it to be super overwhelming, but big plug that any sort of safety net is a good idea for your operation. So thanks for having me, Ben. I really appreciate it. Turn it over to your other great presenters, and looking forward to hearing from any of you in the future. Good luck to everyone.
Thank you, Bailey. Have a great night. Cool. Well, thank you all for your good questions there. And yeah, we're just going to keep it moving here. I want to introduce our next speaker. We've got Jeff Cole from a wonderful organization, the Carrot Project. If you don't know about them, you're about to learn, and I hope you enjoy their resources. But yeah, Jeff's a ninth generation farmer in Sutton, Massachusetts. He's got decades of experience owning and operating farm, and also doing technical assistance and supporting other farmers. So he's a wellspring of knowledge and wisdom. So real grateful that Jeff, you made the time to join us and share your insights. And yeah,
All
welcome.
right. So thanks, Ben. For those of you who don't know about the Carrot Project, I'll give you a couple slides to tell you a little bit about the Carrot Project, who I work for, and a little bit more about me. As Ben said, I've been farming for a long time. I've actually been farming since 1978. I've worked in the ag support system for about 40 years in various capacities, from volunteer to being paid. And ultimately, as part of my Carrot Project work, I coach many new growers on their opportunities to get land or to improve or start or grow a business, and support them in their farm financial management. Give me a second here while I move I don't see you all, but I see some of you. So if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. And I think I have a short enough number of slides that we can have time to question and answers in my half hour. Well, the Carrot Project offers programs serving the farm and food entrepreneurs that we provide the latest research and training and one-on-one technical assistance, skill building, and we provide capital as well, basically loans. It's all within a supportive ecosystem of help. We work with a lot of partners, including new entrants. We address the most important gaps at the intersections of financial security, financial barriers to farmland access, and farmers' ability to weather major disruptions. We offer services in 3 program areas. One is business advising and coaching, where we work side by side with our farmer or business clients to achieve their business goals and ultimately so that they thrive in the long term. We have business advisors that provide one-on-one support around farm financials and the business of farming. And these clients receive 2 years of one-on-one advising specific to their business, and they work with a single advisor matched to their needs. Occasionally, we'll make a team of 2 or more advisors depending on the needs and the skill sets that are required to meet the objectives. We do training, so if you're nervous with numbers or have limited experience, I invite you to check on our website. We have a calendar there where we run various in either virtual or in-person trainings. We have a sign up for a newsletter. All this will help you get exposed to our information that increases your financial know-how through these various online resources and the virtual and in-person trainings that we do. Almost all of our training work occurs between November and February up here in the Northeast for obvious reasons, and you'll see announcements of those in our farmer newsletter starting every fall. And finally, loans and capital readiness. We offer expertise in preparing your financial package for a loan or a grant application. We offer some loans and loan guarantees, and we can coach you to get the right capital for your needs. Our services have a long track record of increasing farm profitability. And so I think this is the key slide that I like to harp on here, is that when folks work with us, the average annual net farm income increases by $2,600 per year. And we work with all sizes of farmers. We work with farmers that are only grossing $10,000 or $15,000 a year, and we work with farmers that are grossing $500,000 or $600,000 per year. So this average is an average of all of that class of revenue. So Ben asked me to talk about NAP primarily, but we have supported farmers in any number of programs, and here a list of the FSA I call them disaster programs that we think are most applicable to farmers in the Northeast. I'll give you a second to read that. We have worked with a couple of farmers in the last couple of years for the livestock and honeybee program, as a matter of fact, and a couple with the livestock forage disaster program. So they can work, and I'll have more to say about that in a second. I'm going to review a little bit with a little comment of what Bailey already presented. So as she said, to get covered, you have to register with them, and additional detail, you have to have what they call the AD 1026 on file with them. The AD 1026 is a form that is for highly erodible land conservation and wetland conservation certification. So you fill out this form, and Bailey already said, they want to make sure that you're having the kind of practices that doesn't erode the soil. So you fill it out. If you've got wetlands or highly erodible land, someone from NRCS actually will come out and they'll help you create a plan that meets the government's criteria for protecting the land as they think is proper, or probably is proper. Another thing about the application process, the farm must have made or must intend to make at least $1,000 from commercial sales. So there is if you will, a commercial intent. It's not particularly challenging, honestly. $1,000 isn't too hard to generate, but you can't be doing it for a hobby. A little note on the annual adjusted gross income of less than 900,000 that Bailey mentioned. That is a combination of the farm income plus the farmer or farmer's non-farm income. It's not just farm income. A little bit, not that many of us are going to meet that $900,000 mark, but it's not just the farm money. I just wanted to point that out. The farm has to be what they're calling a small business, where the majority owners, greater than 50% of their activity, is operating the farm on a day-to-day basis. The farm may not be a volunteer community group operation, a nonprofit operation, or owned by investors. But urban plots are eligible. There is no land acreage threshold required. So basically, no farm is too small. So I kept the pay to service fee in here, and I added one more element that Bailey didn't cover, which is if you farm in more than one county, your service fee goes up to $19.50. And we'll talk about the fee and that type of stuff in a little bit. And of course, as she mentioned, there is additional coverage that you can buy. It's called the premium service fee. And here's the process. After you receive your coverage, as she said, you've got to report your acreage by the crop deadline. As soon as there's a crop loss, you need to report it. There are reporting deadlines, and they're somewhat crop dependent. And I know Bailey said 72 hours. So unless it's changed, there are 3 categories: 72 hours, 15 days, or 30 days. I left it in my slides. She made it really clear that it's really critical to keep accurate and verifiable production records. And this is not just for, as she pointed out, it can be helpful to you, not just for these particular purposes. And she already said they could send out an adjuster. So I want to get into some of the details. So as she pointed out, the basic payout is up to 50% of the crop yield at 55% of the average market price. And she went over the fact that you can buy additional premium to change those coverages. So important. We did talk about it with a question from Ryan. The price is federally set. It's not based on your individual average market price. It's not based upon retail prices solely. What we understand is, as Bailey said, it's based upon reports that are in a system that is accepted by the USDA. So National Ag Statistics is one of them. And at the end of the day, here's my opinion, experience with that is that the number of farmers who report in our region is a relatively small percentage of farmers. And many of them are not farmers that are using intensive crop methods for high yields, not necessarily exclusively selling at the retail level to be able to report retail prices. And so the net result is that the price that you're going to get tends or trends towards the wholesale price. Right? And so when you go to think about whether it's, if you have to pay the fee in particular, whether it's worth it, consider that you're gonna get no more than 50%. And many times we don't have 100% crop loss. So if you've got if you harvest 25% of your crop, you're going to get paid for 25% that you didn't harvest at 55% of roughly the average wholesale price. And so Carrot Project says, do some math, push your pencil and say, is my labor time to fill out all the paperwork worth that amount of payment? Is what if I have to pay the premium, is it worth it? I mean, it becomes relatively simple math to figure out whether it's a reasonable expense. That's our position. We're not saying it is or isn't for any particular grower, but it is something that we think bears paying attention to. I want to point out, or reiterate something that Billy said, which is it's basically natural disaster coverage, damage from wildlife, livestock, humans, and anything else that's not a natural disaster event are not covered. And let's see what else. In terms of being approved, in terms of the natural disaster being coverable, the farm must be physically located in a county that has received a presidential emergency disaster declaration or a secretarial disaster designation due to quote unquote a qualifying event. So as Bailey pointed out, if you ever consider using this thing, it pays to get registered with FSA, to do your crop reports every year, because as she said tonight, they are backdating some losses. Sometimes it doesn't happen right away, and if you don't have a report, then you don't get any money, basically. The other thing I will say is that she talked about the coverage. Oops, sorry, did I just advance the slide? She talked about the coverage or the yields being a running average of your yields. And if you're a new farmer and you don't have 4 to 10 years of yields to report, then they can use a combination, or they may use a combination of whatever yields you have to report and the county average. And again, the county average is pretty much established by the reports to NAS, as I understand it. So again, after you get the coverage, you're going to do your reports, and you have to report within a certain number of hours. I think I'm going backwards here. Sorry. And let's see. Yeah, we can go on. So basically, that's it for me in terms of our thinking about it, that they can be supportive, but the actual cash payouts, particularly if you have small acreages, can be pretty small. So questions.
Great insights, Jeff. Thank you. There is a question in the chat from Ryan. What percentage of growers that you work with are finding it worthwhile to do NAP? What scale, what type of farms do these tend to be?
We tend to work with new and beginning farmers, primarily on relatively small scale, so under 20 acres and under. Experience is that it's typically larger farms that have larger acreages of those individuals' crops. This is a crop by crop required, application. Yes, there's a cap, let's say $825 a year. But if you got a quarter acre of raspberries and half an acre of blueberries and, a tenth of an acre of carrots and, yeah, so because it's based upon, crop yields by acre, it just may not be worth it, financially or labor time wise to fill out all the paperwork to apply for those small acreage crops. So it's mostly farmers that have larger individual acres of crops that are, relatively high in wholesale value. I was, it was heartened to hear that they have a program in place to. It sounded like at least include a differential for organic production, but I question. I'd be interested in knowing what the details are. How are they going to use the national average for organic production, or are they going to use the Northeast? Again, the key factor is these numbers that are generated are by statute are required to be generated by approved reporting entities. National Ag Statistics is one of them. I never really have gotten a strong answer on what other reporting entities are approved. I believe I understand that your reports of income to FSA, although they may be required by program guidelines, are not considered approved sources, meaning you as an individual farm made the report and you're not an approved source. That's my understanding. I could be wrong, but but it gets back to that whole concept of, what is the actual market price that's going to be established? And we're at a disadvantage up here in New England in the Northeast because we have higher land prices, we have higher input prices, we enjoy higher retail sale price, levels at least primarily, but compared to the rest of the country. But it's not necessarily going to be the case that we're going to see the benefit of those things in these programs.
Great. Any other questions for Jeff? And Jeff, since this is, a farm labor workshop, I would be remiss to not invite you to share your mantra just on a separate topic about owners, including time and a rate for their own labor. If you care to share any insights related to that.
Thank you. So, as Bailey said, these programs are a support system in the case of real significant loss or disaster that might keep you in business, and the payments can be applied to any expense that you have, obviously, and that is labor. So it can, if you will, be seen as a small insurance program against labor costs. In terms of our mantra at the CARET project, there's two elements of it. And the first one is that anything that is not planned is not going to happen. Probably technically unlikely to happen, but our experience is if you don't plan it, it's not going to happen. So in the case of owner labor, many farmers are sole proprietorships, and their position, sort of a legal position, is whatever is left over for profit at the end of the year, that's my wages. And that's, there's nothing wrong with that perspective. But excuse me, that goes against our mantra of plan. If it's not planned, it's not going to happen. So what we like to do is have, for purposes of planning, have a farm owner establish a labor rate for themselves. It doesn't have to be exorbitant, but establish a rate. And in your financial planning, you put your labor rate and your hours into your sheet, right? Your book, so to speak. Excuse me. And now it's there. It's there in writing. It's there as a plan. You may or may not achieve it in reality, but it's there, and it helps you understand your cost of production and set prices for sales that will meet those objectives of paying yourself how much you wanted to. All right.
Great insight. Any final questions for Jeff? Again, that you saw his email there. So, if you think of something or you want to get connected with the Carrot Project, it's a great opportunity. Cool. All right. Well, and Jeff, if you'll be around toward the end, if folks think of other questions, maybe for the Q&A after Ryan's presentation, you can chime in too. All right. Last but certainly not least, I'm pleased to introduce Ryan Voiland from Red Fire Farm. And Ryan's been farming basically since he was in middle school. I learned from your bio on there. You had a little blueberry farm stand going at home there, and you got the bug early. Ryan went to Cornell University, got his degree on fruit and vegetable horticulture. And then in 2001, actually, I meant to tell Bailey, but you got financial assistance from FSA and Farm Credit East to buy the Granby farmstead that you've been farming since 2020 or 2001, right? You've been there about 24 years. And it's an amazing operation. I got to visit it. I think it was probably 2008 or 9, and quite impressive. So Ryan, thanks so much for joining and sharing your insights with us tonight, just about all the various labor related topics that you've encountered over your years of farming there.
All right, let me try to do the screen share here.
Beautiful.
All right. So yeah, I've put together a few slides and pictures from my farm, but I've been asked to talk about different sort of farm labor considerations and things that I've learned or run into over the years of operating a farm and hiring lots of staff, probably too much staff. So yeah, just kind of going to touch on a few of the topics that I think are important to think about when you're thinking about getting into becoming an employer and hiring people to do farm work. So, oh gosh. So here we go. As in, it's not advancing. There, I have to use the mouse. So one of my first points, I think, and all of you that are involved in growing things are probably aware that there's a tremendous amount of labor that can quickly go into growing vegetable crops. That's primarily what I grow, fruit crops. I don't raise livestock, but I'm told that livestock takes quite a bit of labor too. So all these different farming things that that you might be thinking about doing seem to require a lot of handwork. And my approach has always been as an organic farmer. And I think that often adds additional labor because in many cases, organic systems are falling back to using labor to manage weeds in particular instead of herbicides. So it's really easy to add, to need even more labor when you have an organic farming system, it seems like. But yeah, almost every step of farming, from planting to taking care of the crop, hoeing, hand weeding. I don't have harvesting here, but hopefully you're spending most of your labor on harvesting and packing the crop, and not so much labor, like limited amount of labor on your planting and taking care of your crop relative to your harvesting and packing of the crop. Um, if you're picking something, chances are you're about to sell it, and that's good towards the goal of trying to make money. All right, then, my farm, many of your farms probably are involved in retail sales of crops, as well. So that introduces another whole level of labor need in terms of selling at a farmer's market, such as these pictures are showing, or having a farm store, farm stand often requires retail labor. And actually, just occurred to me now, but another whole topic that one could get into is some of the rules that have come down about differences in labor laws about retail employment and farm employment. And that can become a really sticky area, especially for a diversified farm that's doing a lot of different crops and selling things retail. Um, I think, in a nutshell, in Massachusetts, the current interpretation is that anybody who's working retail and anyone who's working packing are subject to overtime rules. So that means if they work over the 55 hours a week, then they are subject to the time and a half overtime rules. Whereas field workers who are doing work in the field, harvesting or weeding or driving tractors or whatever, are not subject to those overtime rules because that's considered agricultural labor. That's a real tricky thing for a farm like ours, and I think many farms, where a lot of crews end up spending the morning harvesting and then the afternoon in the packing shed washing what they harvested in the morning. There doesn't seem to be much distinction. It's all kind of the same work to do, to get the farm product out. But if you take your workers that were doing field work in the morning, put them into the packing shed, that means they suddenly all go into that category of being eligible for overtime. So that's something you have to think about carefully about how you structure your farm and whether you can afford that overtime or not. And there's been, I think a lot of complaints, continuing complaints in Massachusetts about the way that rule has happened. So I think that one of the most important things before you think about hiring is to think about getting your farming system as efficient as you possibly can figure out how to make it. Um, Labor is very expensive. It is the largest expense on my farm for sure, and I think probably on almost any horticultural vegetable type farm. Labor is the number one key. So probably more than anything else, whether you can manage the percent of your sales that go to paying labor successfully or not is going to make the difference between whether your farm is financially viable or not. Um, and we've been in business for a lot of years, and we really are struggling to keep our labor cost low enough for our farm to be viable, as labor rates have been mandated to go up by the rise in minimum wage that's happened in the last couple of years. And a lot of other fees and workers' comp and things like that have also all gone up. Rules around healthcare coverage have been increased. So there's a lot that keeps going up in terms of the amount that a farmer is required to pay per hour for labor. And so it gets seems to get harder and harder to figure out how to keep that labor cost low enough for the farm to stay viable in our case. And, I'm sure other farms struggle with this too. Consultants say that you want your labor not to be more than, it should be 50% or less of your total sales. And that's for like a vegetable farm. A lot of other farms, 35 to 45% is an even better range to keep your labor down into. So with that in mind, I think thinking about ways to to eliminate labor from the get-go or minimize it where you can is a pretty critical mindset to have if you're going to have success in our economic climate. So maybe custom hiring, lime spreading or fertilizer spreading to do big jobs that can be done mechanically might be one way to save labor. Mechanizing your ventilation systems so that your side vents and peak vents on your greenhouses go up and down based on a thermostat and motors, and you don't have to have somebody there rolling and unrolling those roll-ups every time the sun comes in or out during the spring and the fall. Automatic watering systems can be something that can save a lot of labor. In this picture, the hanging baskets are all set up to a drip irrigation system, so we can just turn on that drip and the whole thing gets watered and don't have to go around and individually water every single plant. Likewise, in our greenhouses, we have micro sprinklers, so the plants on the benches, we can turn on those micro sprinklers for an hour or two and water them that way instead of having to use a hand wand with a hose to water. And we do that as much as we can. We find that plants are often different sizes, different size pots, different levels of, stages of germination. So it's not always possible to fully meet the watering needs with the micro sprinklers. But if we set up our greenhouse carefully, we can often do 50%, 75% of the watering with the micro sprinklers and then just do the fine details by hand. I think if you want to set up your fields and your system and your farm in an organized way, you want to have a system where everything is kind of like uniform. You have uniform sized growing areas. You have a bed system where, the beds are always the same size. You want to have names for every single one of those blocks and fields that's on the farm, because when it comes time to, when it's time to manage folks that are working, you need to have everybody on the same page, understanding when I say go to TB3 and weed the third bed from the west, you want everybody to understand where TB3 is and what direction is west and what direction is east and so forth and so on. So that's a picture there of part of our farm, showing some of our greenhouses and blocks and garlic beds that were just planted and so forth. And I think that, to be successful, you have to try to think about ways to mechanize where you can. You want to be, magnifying the productivity of the labor that you're hiring, by having your labor driving and using tractors rather than using a shovel to prepare a bed or whatever. So, we've tried to think about building a system and getting machines that make the farm reasonably efficient. I think we're still held back because we can't afford the right equipment in some cases, and we're using too much labor in places where we probably should and could get a machine if we could afford to get the machine. But we have a good seeder, that Mattermax seeder on the right, for planting crops precisely and accurately so that they're spaced really well, and we can, usually in most crops minimize having to do or eliminate having to do any thinning. Like the water wheel transplanter is a real basic machine for vegetable farming that I think probably every vegetable farmer should consider having one of those. But if that, the nice thing about that is that it becomes much easier for the labor. I mean, not that what they're doing is easy. I mean, farm work is, I have so much appreciation for people who come in every day and do do farm work. It's the hardest job there is, really. It should be much more respected in general. But folks on the back of that transplanter, they don't have to think about how far apart to put those plants because the machine is set up and making the holes at the right spacing that's going to match the cultivation machinery that's going to come later. And thus they can just focus on going quickly, getting those plants out of the cells and into the hole, into the wet hole, and not have to be like thinking too hard, just moving along. We've been able to mechanize our carrot harvestings with a carrot harvesting machine on the left there. And that's, I think that's another mechanizing the planting and the cultivating are things that a lot of farms can do. Getting to the level of being able to mechanize harvest is maybe a little more challenging and requires a little more scale. But I think harvesting is what takes a lot of time. So that's another area to really look at if you can and figure out ways to do that harvesting more efficiently. So this is I didn't make this chart. Somebody who worked for me made this chart a long time ago, and I don't think I ever would have made it quite like it looks, but this is the example I could find when I was looking for something to represent an example of kind of a chart for how all the different positions on our farm are supposed to fit together and who's in charge of who. I think it's very important for farms to sort of do the exercise of thinking about how, who's in charge of what. If you have, especially, I mean, I think even a smaller scale farm should do this exercise. But if you have a farm that's starting to get into different enterprises and multiple locations, like we have 2 locations on our farm, we really want to understand who is in charge of who and make sure, and who communicates with who too. This chart doesn't really get into that. And, I don't know, I don't like how this chart puts myself and my wife as like these kings on the top of everything. Yeah, sure, we do have a lot of responsibility, but our responsibility also should be, falling into a lot of these categories of, I do a lot of production stuff, and my wife does a lot of like logistics things and marketing things. So I would say this chart is pretty imperfect, but at least it gives you an idea of how we have tried to think about how the different positions on the farm relate to each other and what the management structure is. I think, one thing to keep in mind is like how many people can one individual do a good job of managing or supervising. And I'm not sure what the magic number is, but I know there's kind of a limit to it. And, sometimes crews can be that are doing a lot of the same thing, maybe can be a little larger under the management of one person. But individuals that are expected to do like lots of different tasks, you have to think about how many any given person should sort of be in charge of. So another way to look at positions on the farm, and I don't know if that's pretty hard to read, I think. But this is a portion of our spreadsheet where we have our labor budget, essentially, where we've assigned the amount of hours for the season that is expected for each position. This isn't something that we necessarily share with the employees, or maybe our top managers are involved, or our HR manager, and but most people on the farm aren't seeing this. But it's a really important document that the owners and the high-ranking managers use to figure out what the positions are on the farm and what those positions are getting paid relative to the other positions. And this chart has a lot of formulas worked into it that take into account all of the other expenses that go with per hour with hiring somebody, like somebody doesn't make just $17 an hour, that there's all the employer matches to the taxes, and I don't even know the name of all those different things, but there's FICA and this and that and the next thing, and there's all these different things that you have to add on to actually figure out what it's costing you to hire any given position. And then this picture doesn't show it, but this spreadsheet goes on and on to the right and pretty much breaks down each of these positions into a every pay period of the year for the whole season. So we on our farm we have a every other week pay period, 2-week pay period. So it's in 2-week chunks for the whole 52 weeks of the year, with the hours and what that's going to amount to for the the cost of supporting that position for those hours for that pay period. So we can use that to understand what we're looking at in terms of a expense every 2 weeks to support the budgeted payroll. So then another thing when you're thinking about hiring somebody, you need to define the details of what that position is all about. So for all the positions on our farm, we have these position description, sometimes they're called offer letters. And a lot of times they're kind of similar for people that have the same, for a tractor operator. This one is basically for a tractor operator. It shows, this isn't the whole thing, but this is some of it. And it talks about, what the hourly rate is going to be for this position, what the hours are, what the benefits are, what the specific responsibilities and duties are with the tractor that is going to be expected from this position. In this case, we have a similar position for packing positions, for farmers market staff, for farm store manager, for all the different, for greenhouse manager, all those different positions that were on that chart up above. Oh, there's a second part of that. So that's the whole thing. First part, second part. And yeah, there's a lot of times we'll set this up so there's sort of like your primary responsibility areas, and then there'll be other or secondary responsibility areas, which are often backing up people in other departments. So like the tractor operator position might be expected primarily to be doing tractor work, but if it's a rainy day and it's too wet to do tractor work, there might be an expectation that that person goes and checks in with the greenhouse manager and helps do greenhouse tasks that need to be done during that rainy day. So I think another thing that farms that are hiring people, it's recommended have an employee handbook, some sort of document that sort of sets out all the general policies and procedures on your at your farm or at your business. And this is just page 1, but this is where there's a lot of detail. I think ours is, well, this was in 2015, so this is very old. We've updated it a lot since. It's probably even bigger now. I don't have access to it anymore, I guess, quite honestly, because now it's on some sort of like cloud server that I don't usually use. So the only copy I could find was from 2015. um, but yeah, it's got all these different things about where do you keep your stuff when you're, can you keep it in the vehicle? Can you keep it in, do you have a locker? Where do you keep your spare shoes? What's the sexual harassment policy? What's the, what are safety considerations? All these different things are covered in this document. There's a lot of templates, I think, out there that you can find for doing an employee handbook. So I think when we first started, we kind of just took a template and then started to customize it for our particular circumstances. So some other things I thought of that come into play when you start to have employees is that there's a whole procedure for when you're hiring somebody for how to verify and get the right documents that allow you to legally hire them and put them onto payroll. And I don't, anyway, that's something you need to know, study about, know what you're doing when it's time to hire somebody. People have to like provide a driver's license and a social security card or some combination of things, or, there's a whole set of things that they can potentially provide. Workers' compensation insurance becomes a factor and really should be considered part of yeah. Farm business advisors generally say that workers' comp expense should be included sort of as part of your labor expense, part of your like P&L statement. Whereas, some bookkeepers are inclined to put it in the insurance category further down on your like statement. But really, workers' comp should go up or down depending on the scale and the number of employees that you have. I find there's a lag time though, because they want to always base this year's workers' comp on last year's employment. So if you're going to like change scale a lot, it takes a while for that to catch up, it seems like. Health insurance becomes an issue, especially if you're having over 50 full-time equivalents, then you're required to offer some sort of health insurance benefit program in Massachusetts. And we found our business has been over that threshold in recent years, so now we have to do that, which, I mean, it's a good thing that some, is attractive to some potential employees and makes them want to sign up for the job, but it also can be very expensive for the business. And very complicated, I would say. And then doing payroll, yeah, so I didn't get around to getting any copies of payroll stuff, but I highly, highly recommend that if you're going to have employees, even if I was only going to have like 2 employees or something, or even 1, I think I would hire some sort of payroll service to do all the filings and all the stuff that has to be done in terms of getting that payroll out. It's just super complicated and very easy to screw up on, and then you can get yourself in trouble with the IRS and the state tax collection agencies. So we've gone through a number of different payroll companies over the years, and are currently using this place called Check Writers based out of Northampton. It's a local place. And we found them to be the most, we've had trouble. Like we had some national place at one point and they couldn't understand farms at all. Farms file a 943 form instead of a 941 form, I believe it is. And many of these sort of big corporate payroll service type places, they can't understand a 943 and their systems aren't set up to deal with it. And it can cause all kinds of havoc. So whatever payroll company you get, make sure they understand farms and farm employment and 943 forms. And make sure the service is good. I've had very mixed results with different places. At one time we had Farm Credit East, they offer payroll division, and they were pretty good. But they became expensive. Like they had a discounted rate for like a new borrower early on in my career, and then it got more and more and more expensive over time. And we found that it made sense to switch to a different place at some point. So yeah, basically my HR manager collects all the hours using time clock machines at each of our work sites, or we even have ways that certain employees are allowed to punch in and out using their phones now. And then all this data is submitted to the payroll company. They put in the hours for each person. They do all the tax filings and everything that has to be done. They give me back. They even cut the checks. I think basically they make checks that are separate from our other check. I mean, they're from my same bank, the same business checking account, but they're a different number sequence from the other checks that we use for other stuff. And then those are sent to the office for the employees to pick up on payday, or many employees now opt for electronic deposit into their accounts directly, which the payroll company does by drawing the funds from our account, putting it into people's accounts. So yeah, there's a lot of complication in having a lot of employees, but it's part of farming, this type of farming anyway. And then I think another, well, let's see. So yeah, I got more stuff I want to talk about, I guess. So once you have a bunch of employees, yeah, I guess I want to talk a little bit about strategies and systems for keeping everybody's work up to the quality standards, being as efficient as possible with their time, and trying to put out a quality uniform product, and maintain the equipment and the spaces in an established way. So this whole concept of standard operating procedures is something that I think is really helpful in terms of training folks and establishing systems. So these are some examples of signs that we've put, in this case, in our packing room, that show everything about, how to, what order to pack greens, because like, I don't know, there's, for salad mix, like we're mixing things together anyway. So if there's some leaves of spinach that are in the tub that get mixed in with the leaves of lettuce, that's not a problem for salad mix, but we don't really want lettuce mixed in with arugula. So we've got the like order of operations. We've got this sign that's been posted that shows people how to arrange our standard crates onto pallets so that they fit optimally, and so they're always the same every time. And a lot of the signage, a lot of the folks that work on our farm only really speak Spanish. So especially in the parts of the farm where we have a lot of Spanish only people working, we've done a lot of our signs in both English and Spanish in order to make it so everybody can understand. We have a lot of SOP procedures about what to clean every day at the end of every day, how to clean macro bins, how to clean the root washing machine. And these are things that are posted and reinforced by our packing manager during the workday as well. You want to have systems for how you're keeping track of produce, or keeping track of orders that are being harvested and packed, that everybody understands and that are the same every day. So for instance, we have a system for keeping track of our orders that involves different colors of highlighter pens about whether this order, or whether this thing has been picked, it's in the packing room, yet to be washed. Once it's done completely, it gets shaded a certain color. Highlighters work better because you don't want to cross it out completely, because you still want to be able to see what it was even after it's done and place in the cooler. You want to have, systems for organizing your harvesting or your packing supplies and knives and things. Other SOPs are about like establishing uniform bunch sizes. This is something that is always really a continuing, ongoing challenge for vegetable farms, is to make sure everybody that's working has the same, uniform idea of what a bunch is supposed to be. So taking pictures and posting those, putting those pictures where, sometimes that works. Sending, I'll send pictures to the crew or the crew leaders that are actually harvesting a particular crop if there's something different about a particular day. But having standard things available to help people understand is a real good way to go. Teaching people about, the people, this sign, we originally made it to help our customers understand the different varieties of hot peppers. But we found we needed to pack or post this sign also in the field, or in the packing barn, in the, on the way when harvest crews are on their way to the field, because not everybody going to the hot pepper field actually understands the differences between each variety of hot peppers we found. All right. So some of the systems that I've developed over the years that I think are helpful in managing and coordinating a large staff. We have up to like 80 people working for the farm during the summer. So it's a lot of people to keep coordinated. So I use a system of checking all the fields. Like I pretty much make the overall plan of what everybody on the farm should be doing each week in terms of production stuff and in terms of general harvest stuff. So after I check all these fields each week, I make a point of going around checking the fields. And then I type into an Excel spreadsheet. And you probably can't read this, but one of these pages is for all the tractor work that needs to be done for a week. Another page is all the field work, everything that requires hand labor that needs to be done for the week. Another page has, let's see, well, cultivation work. So cultivation for managing weeds is really tractor work, but it's such a big section of tractor work that I give it a whole page by itself. And then there's like greenhouse work, anything that needs to be done in the greenhouse. And then transplanting is another type of tractor slash handwork, combination of people plus machine. And that can be a really big list during a lot of the year. This picture is taken from later in the year when there were only a couple of transplanting projects to be done. But in June, it takes an entire page and I can barely fit it all in. So I make this whole guide for the week of all the different things that we want to get done. I email this list out to all employees on the farm. I have an email list that everybody who works for the farm, hopefully, is got their email on there. So at the beginning of the week, they get this whole list. Now, I wish people would pay a little more attention to it than they do sometimes, but hopefully they glance at it, take a look, especially the key people, the supervisors, the people that have a little more of a leadership role are looking at this pretty carefully, and it helps them understand what's on the agenda for the week. And then from that, well, in my case for our Montague farm location, I break down and make a daily list. That's this bottom list that's on this picture that says Montague Tuesday, 9 maybe. And that list is, I usually handwrite that list, but it's based on all those items that are on the weekly list primarily. And this says exactly what order every person should be doing stuff every day. So every tractor operator, well, first I usually, make it by having who's going to be transplanting. What does that mean for other tractor operators? What are they going to be doing? What's their list of tractor work? Is there a field crew that is doing hand work that doesn't involve tractors? They have their own list. But I basically put this all on the same page, the same piece of paper, and give it to everybody. So everybody else knows what everyone else is supposedly working on any given day. And there are a lot of days where things come up, well, things don't go exactly as planned. Something is delayed here or there, or it rains or whatever, and we need to switch around tasks. So, or somebody's list just didn't go as quickly as somebody else's. So some other tractor operator, I'll tell Yuan, okay, if you get done first, then you go help Caleb with anything that's left on his list, for instance. So I want to get information so people understand what else is happening. So yeah, and then we use a hard copy. So that's emailed to everybody, but then I also have this hard copy where people actually are expected to check off each task as they finish it. And that's a major way for how we keep track of where we're at during the week and what's left to be done. There's a close-up of that weekly list. I have to learn to read my handwriting to work here. So then I guess my last general area is to try to keep folks sort of motivated and happy. And this is probably my hardest part of being a farm. I'm very good at making lists and figuring out cropping plans and details and things. But I'm not really the most personable person. and I think I struggle to fully motivate people. So I've been trying to work on that and do better. And certainly some of our other major managers on the farm are probably much better at it than I am. But I do think it's really important and helps people feel, part of the farming effort and, happy with their work and appreciated. Um, so, there's always there's frequently times when people need to be coached about how to do something better, to make the bunches the right size, to work faster a lot of the time, this or that. Detail of somebody's work needs to be coached to be improved. And the advice is to always try to tell them, don't only give the negative feedback of what to do better, but try to also give them positive things that is good about the work that they're doing, and people will receive that information much better if they're feeling like they're doing good stuff as well as things that need improvement. um on a farm of our scale, even a smaller farm, like somebody's got to deal with HR stuff that comes up. There's a tremendous amount of it. um and it's yeah, it can be a real distraction. That's from my perspective, but it is something that needs to be dealt with, and you need to be ready to have a system for dealing with things that come up, interpersonal things, people, and helping people with their, I don't know, any number of things that need to be dealt with. Their questions about their paycheck, their issues with getting to and from work, their, I don't know, any number, so many different things. um Performance reviews are something that you should try to work like a schedule to do. Each supervisor should be doing that. I don't, I don't know. I would say an annual basis is about the best we can try to achieve, but maybe more would be better. Um, I think that if you're going to, a lot of farming work is seasonal, and even on a farm like ours where we do stuff year round, we sell in the winter. Um, we still have a lot of fluctuation in the amount of hours that we have available between the winter months and spring months and the summer months. And so that does mean we have to give people shorter work days or not hire as many people during the slower times of the year. And this can be really disconcerting for some people that are looking for hours. Um, so when we have to have these seasonal schedule changes, we want to be able to give people lots of advance warning, let them know in advance, what to expect and when the season, when the schedule's going to be changing. So you want to try not to put a whole lot of surprises on people about start and end. Oh yeah, and then oops, in this picture, doing treats, doing parties, are things that, I don't know. Personally, I don't care too much for either of those, um, but I'm told that people really like it. So, um, we do them every now and then. We're trying to get one scheduled for our end of the year party right now. This is one we did in July. We had a live band playing on our loading dock, and a lot of community support was coming out during this particular event to help support some of the immigrant population that works on our farm. Here we have a game that was happening at one of a different party where people were balancing pumpkins on their heads. Most of these were employees and some of their kids. But this sort of thing really helps people, connect and feel part of the farm. So that's pretty much all I got for slides. I'm happy to take any questions, and I guess that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. So many practical tips, and wow, what an operation you have there. Highly organized. Nice work. Any questions from the group while you're thinking of them? And you can either put them in the chat or unmute. I thought, Ryan, I would ask, I'm guessing you've scaled up at some point during your many years growing there. How do you think about, the associated labor requirements when you're thinking about scaling up, and I don't know, what labor related issues come into your mind when you're considering scaling?
Well, some of those things I touched on, there's just all these sort of hidden expenses that seem to be associated with labor. And so I think you really want to understand those the best you can and not be getting into something that's a surprise. Um, and then, yeah, trying to have a budget and trying to stick to it. Yeah, I don't know. Quite honestly, we've been trying to figure out how to scale down in recent years. Um, More so than, I guess there was a time when we scaled up, but now we've been trying to figure out, well, how can we get this done with fewer positions? Um, and we're growing a little bit less acreage than we were 5 or 6 years ago. But yeah, a lot of that chart that was made has way too many positions, if you ask me now. And we are trying to like consolidate responsibilities somewhat and make it smaller. Um, yeah.
Cool, thank you. Any questions for Ryan from the group here? One question I had, Ryan, is how do you communicate during the day? Do you just use cell phones, or you got walkie-talkies, or how
Oh
do you?
yeah, meant to mention that, but yeah, we're pretty cell phone dependent. We do not have walkie-talkies. We have fields that are in different towns, up and down the road in the same town, several miles apart. So having a walkie-talkie is a pretty hopeless thing to attempt. Um, but cell phones are, it will also, yeah, I mean, both for actual calls, but also texting is something that we do a lot. And we've actually established group text. Um, I don't know what they're called, chats. So like when there's something to do with harvest that might impact what we have available for wholesale, we'll send this to a particular chat that goes to our wholesale manager, our harvest manager, our packing manager, myself, my wife who has fingers in all these things. So everybody's kind of getting the same update at the same time. I mean, you have to be careful. You don't want people getting too much superfluous information or text that aren't really relevant to what their part of the farm is. But that said, it has been really helpful. Like our Montague tractor operator production team has its own chat because we have to communicate with each other a lot about, the specific work that we're doing. Um, yeah, there's a chat for, I don't know, HR issues and like when call outs and stuff like that. So, so yeah, we've been able to do a lot by having these sort of organized communication chats.
That makes sense. It's cool. All right. Any final questions for either of our guest presenters here, Jeff or Ryan? All right, well then I'll let you go, but I just want to thank you, Jeff and Ryan, both so much for sharing your insights. You've got a lot of years under your belt, a lot of wisdom, and appreciate you sharing that with us. And yeah, thanks for making the time. I know it's not the easiest this time of night, but really appreciate you joining us. And I'm sure folks in the recording who aren't able to give you gratitude in the chat as you're receiving now, appreciate it as well. So thank you very much. And thanks to you all that participated. If you don't mind doing that, 5-minute poll that'll pop up in your window when it leaves, that would help us out a lot. And if there's any way New Entry can support you all in your growing endeavors, please reach out, and hopefully we'll see you at the next workshop, if not sooner.
I did put that registration link for the next workshop in the chat, so if you're not registered, that is there.
Thank you, Sydney.
But it will be in the email as well after this.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, well, I'm gonna hit.
All right. Good night.
Cool. Thanks so much. Really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
guys.